Welcome back to episode 7 of Fever Dream Podcast.
Episode 7, lucky number 7.
Lucky number 7. It's a lucky day, too, because we were able to see the Odyssey amongst the sold-out theater.
Yes.
All theaters were sold out in the immediate area for the whole weekend, which I've never seen before in my entire life. So, this is about the Odyssey, the whole thing. We're just diving into it. There's been a lot of hate filled online. We even had our own skepticisms and the problem with marketing and all that, all the press, all of that, which was rightfully so. I think it deserved the skepticism and the criticism it received beforehand. But since seeing it, all of that hate has basically evaporated online. I haven't seen anything of any substance really criticizing the film itself, other than people still criticizing the trailers and criticizing things that they were criticizing before. So, biggest opening for a Christopher Nolan film of all time. Just hit that number. I think it was $270 million. Just beat The Dark Knight Rises, which is crazy. And I thought it was an exceptional film. I thought it was great. I think a lot of people think the same thing. But we're going to be getting into it, and we'll start with your judgment of the film.
Yeah, I thought as a Christopher Nolan movie, and just as a Christopher Nolan movie, I thought it was really great. Compared to his prior work, I thought it was very ambitious, and I think he did a good job. As a adaptation of the Odyssey, I gotta subtract some points for that.
Okay.
Just as someone who has read the Odyssey, someone who came in with that frame of mind coming in, I have my own position from that. But we could start with just what we thought was really good, and then we can kind of go into my take on not as just a Christopher Nolan film, but as an adaptation of the Odyssey, and probably one that will be probably the adaptation of the Odyssey that will endure the longest in the collective consciousness of people, at least in the United States, probably in most of the Western world that sees it, but definitely they will be seen around.
Yeah,
have that impact.
Well, maybe let's start actually with your opinion of the accuracy, because I feel like we both agree that it's a good film. It kind of hits on most of the things that make a good film that we can get into. But what were parts that you thought, within the interest of time that they had, 3 hours pretty much the max for a film. So what do you think realistically they could have done better that would have made sense?
As an adaptation or as a film?
As an adaptation, like things that they missed, things that they should have included that they could have.
Okay, well, I'll start with kind of what my impression is as an adaptation, was that they had really much. Christopher Nolan did not make, in my opinion, the Odyssey. He made an Odyssey.
Okay.
He didn't make Homer's Odyssey.
Okay.
Specifically for the point of fact is that the main character, Odysseus, in Christopher Nolan's film, is a much flattened version of who Odysseus is in the Odyssey. Right? In the Odyssey, by Homer, Odysseus is a very arrogant, borderline hubristic individual. He has no shame or compunction for any of the cities that he sacks. He's very proud and very boastful of his conquests. And he's very much a trickster kind of figure, and it's that his personality that causes the issue of causes the Odyssey, causes him to go on this 20-year long journey.
Yeah.
And it started off specifically with the Cyclops, Polyphemos, right, where after he blinds the Cyclops, right? Prior to that, right? The Cyclops requests the name of the individual, and Odysseus replies, "Nobody."
Mm-hmm.
And so, the Cyclops, once injured, says, "Nobody has hurt me," essentially. And then, but again, Odysseus cannot bear to not take the credit for having bested the son of Poseidon, right? This monster and this beast. So he cries out from the beach his name and who he was, and that's when the Cyclops, now knowing the name of who had injured him, then basically tells on his father Poseidon, and that starts the whole thing, right? You didn't have that in the Odyssey,
Right.
You don't have that that arrogance that comes with this, that comes with Odysseus's character.
Yeah.
You don't have the pride that he has that's there, but essentially what you have is it's a psychological drama. It's a modern psychological drama
Yeah.
set within the framework of Homer's The Odyssey. But make no mistake, it is a psychological drama about a soldier with PTSD. And I think I made the comment to you after we had seen the film that Odysseus did not seem to me in the film. He was not the heroic epic hero that he is, or that he's kind of supposed to be, but rather he seems much like a Iraqi veteran, Iraq War veteran with PTSD. He has him, basically addicted to opiates, which doesn't happen in which is the lotus flower.
Yeah.
Which he doesn't. He's the one of his crew that doesn't eat it, but in this one, he's the only one that eats the lotus flower. So I thought, maybe this was just again, I think it's a modern telling of this, and I think it goes back to the point, right, of Christopher Nolan as a modern filmmaker, who can't really understand a world beyond or before the advent of machines. And so that was my thing with Odysseus. It was really this kind of flattening of this individual, right? He has PTSD, and spoilers, Athena is not actually Athena, but a girl that he saw being decapitated in Troy. So, which unfortunately with Athena, and I'll get into that, but as a film aspect, right, it was just Zendaya face the entire time, that pouty look. But, there is no sense of, right, heroism, duty, the sense that he's not ashamed of what he did at Troy. And I think, and towards the end, he seems to be like reworking. It's almost like it, but also like this weird kind of Catholic feeling too at the end with Penelope, where he's basically confessing to all of his sins and everything that he did wrong through the screen in a similar way as a Catholic confession, which doesn't really, again, Odysseus is not ashamed of anything. He's proud of the fact that he took Troy. He's proud of the cities he sacked. He's proud of having injured the Cyclops. He's not someone with guilt or PTSD.
I wonder though if like a scene like that when he's confessing his sins, it almost feels like it's a very personal moment in that movie. It's something that he's been wanting his whole voyage is to get back to Penelope, Anne Hathaway's character, and it feels like he was finally able to do that. And then it kind of seems, it's interesting you said that with the confessional, because if there is a moment in the movie that can give Odysseus more humanity, and maybe even so in the play, he's very boastful and arrogant about these things, you would almost think that he'd be in the settings of, like with the Cyclops and blinding him and, taking credit for it in the play. There's things like that where he's amongst his crew. He's in the heat of the moment of the battle. Whereas he's finally able to not rest, but feels like he's in a safe place with Penelope, like his wife, and he's able to then give his narrative of what happened and basically give as much detail to her as possible. And I guess, he's a different character from the play compared to the poem to the movie, but I think that is an interesting aspect that Nolan did. I agree, he does seem like a PTSD war veteran, but I almost think that moment can seem to show the humanity of Odysseus that you're not going to be able to see anywhere else in the Odyssey itself. Because when is there going to be a moment where he can really confide in somebody in the moment of his feelings and opinions? I'm not sure how that played out in the poem, because granted I haven't read the Odyssey, but I don't know. Do you know in that moment when he was speaking with Penelope, was that actually accurate in terms of the poem of his forthcoming of his sins or his doubts or whatever it might have been. That didn't happen.
Most of the pangs of morality that Odysseus feels is communicated through and with the gods, specifically mostly Athena.
Mm-hmm.
And the only moral concern he has is not for any of the victims that he deals with. It's for himself, for his crew, and for Ithaca. That's it. That's the extent to which his morality goes within the poem.
Okay.
So there is no sense of, this heartfelt
Regret.
confession of, he does pray to the gods. That's the other thing too with Odysseus. Odysseus is known for in the poems as being someone who is very faithful to the gods. As much of a trickster as he is, as much as arrogant as he is very faithful to the gods, which is not something that you really had here. And I think that kind of jolts it a little bit. Again, it's a modern movie where the gods where you don't know if the gods really exist or not. They kind of exist in these elemental ways in the relationship.
And they kind of lead into that too. I think when you said the part about the Cyclops and him saying that like it was Odysseus that that blinded you, and then the only way for Poseidon to know that was for Polyphemus to tell Poseidon that, and then they suffered the wrath of the harsh seas. Whereas in the film, it was more so as if the gods of this time were kind of like the God of the Catholic Church, the all-knowing, knows every action that everyone does at all times, and they kind of relied on that, which made it easier, I think, for the film to move through. Yeah, they were these kind of ethereal beings that, you saw the lightning, you saw the waves, and that was the gods. But I kind of like that you didn't have to see the gods for themselves. Like, you saw Athena, but like, was that really Athena? Like you said, she was the girl that was beheaded. And I guess Calypso,
she's a nymph. She's not a god, but
it's also kind of, you never really see like a main god, so to speak, which I actually kind of enjoyed, because I think they would have gotten a little carried away if they had to really get into the nitty gritty of giving like not humanity to the gods, but giving like a presence and a persona to them.
Yes, and that's the way that the Greeks had, their gods were not all knowing, all seeing. Right, that was just that.
Yeah,
there's many instances in Greek mythology of humans playing tricks on gods, and gods finding out about it, and then having their revenge at the end.
Yeah,
right. But yeah, there was that was just what I saw with at least Odysseus, was kind of this very flattening of this character to fit a more modern psychological drama.
Yeah,
rather than a classical epic retelling of that myth.
Because I think he might have had good reasoning for it too, for the modern audience. It's like the biggest film of the year. So if you have Odysseus being this kind of anti-hero in a way, it wouldn't make sense, because you had kind of the clear antagonists of the movie, like with Robert Pattinson and the suitors and all that. Like, those were the main bad guys. I don't think you could really, it'd be difficult for the audience to also have Odysseus be this character that didn't feel anything,
Well, it's also, I'll push back on that a little bit, right? Because you do have 2024 Ralph Fiennes' The Return, which is basically
Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, fine.
Ralph Fiennes.
Whatever. 2024's adaptation which was basically an adaptation of the Odyssey, that doesn't really compromise on who Odysseus is compared to what he is in Nolan's film. But also, I don't think the modern audience, right? I think that was not really something for the modern audience, because we do have something of an anti-hero that people root for, despite the fact that there's other bad guys, right? Most famously, and this is a point where probably the best analogy here, right? You could almost think of Odysseus as kind of like a Jack Sparrow figure. He's someone that only really cares about, a very limited moral sense, right? But he's a trickster, right? So that's what Jack Sparrow is. Jack Sparrow's very arrogant. He's, you can so I think you can still have a character like that and keep him with that for a modern audience. But I don't think Nolan, but as Nolan specifically, right? Odysseus is, and again, I think this is where the flattening also comes from too, is Nolan is not interested in any type of humor in his films. He's not interested in wit. He's not interested in wordplay. He's not interested in any type of frivolity of the human character in that way.
Yeah.
So again, that flattens, which is also why I think he got rid of the nobody pun that was there. Like he's not a fan of any of that stuff, right? So again, but that's just that you just keep flattening that character, I think, unnecessarily, right? To fit this character, this complex, very three-dimensional character in the poem, into a more two-dimensional kind of moral play in terms of a commentary on war and the guilt that arises from that.
I mean, I'll push back a little bit on the Jack Sparrow analogy too, because it's like, yes, he's this trickster and this main antagonist that's doing it for like the betterment of himself, and that's pretty much it. But
it's a loose analogy.
It is loose, but like Jack Sparrow doesn't have a family, doesn't have a wife, doesn't have kids, doesn't have any of that, and he doesn't have any moral grounding. It's just always been about him. So I guess you could kind of say that doesn't make sense. And
yeah, but in terms of the this is what you said before about kind of an anti-hero with, you know, the main bad guys there. It's like you can do that in the modern setting, and you can have a modern audience understand that and do that, because we have a very prominent modern character that everyone kind of knows it, and that's Jack Sparrow. He's in a way, in many instances, an anti-hero. There are other bad guys in the film, and he is this trickster character who likes to also sometimes engage in wordplay and these other type of things. That's the analogy I'm really trying to draw there. Not exactly that he's a one-to-one with Jack Sparrow.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think he's probably that's more along the lines of Odysseus in the poem, obviously, as opposed to this. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair judgment. I agree with that Odysseus was kind of a more two-dimensional character. I mean, and it's kind of perfect with Matt Damon, because he's kind of a two-dimensional actor in a way, because a lot of times you see him, it's like, oh, it's Matt Damon. He did a great job. I don't think it was a bad performance, but I feel like for all his movies, I just see Matt Damon. Like, I see this public figure more so. And I don't know if you needed an actor that could provide more depth. I don't know if the role really required it. Because it was mostly just like an action film or a very contemplative film and scenes. But yeah, I mean, I think other than that, I don't know. I mean, I think he did a good job. I think Odysseus was it's like you can't really make him an anti-hero in a setting like this when it's this massive quest of, whether that's true for the play or I keep saying the poem. The whole point of this film seemingly is for him to get home. Like, that's his whole goal, and he's been trapped. He's trapped with Calypso. He was trying so many ways, has to go to Hades, has to do all these things to get closer to home. So if you have at the same time being this character that's selfish and only about himself, which he kind of is, he understands the prophecies. He understands that he's the only one that can make it home, and the rest of his crew is basically forsaken to death because there's so many avenues that he tries to save them from, but at the end they can't. He can't do it. I don't know. I think that was well played for the viewing audience, because it's if you try to make that Odysseus character in the movie too like three-dimensional or an anti-hero, whatever it might be, it's not going to be as, I don't think you're going to be rooting for him as much in a way. Like with Jack Sparrow, it's like you're not always rooting for Jack Sparrow. Like, he's being, a punk a lot of times, or doing stuff that's purely for himself, whereas this is, the commander, he's like another captain basically of a crew, but he tries to save them at all costs, and his biggest thing is to get home to save himself, essentially.
Well, do you need a lead in which you're rooting for?
You don't need it, but I think in a movie that's as grand as this, when you have all of these different scenarios that they encounter, all the monsters and, the sea alone and dealing with the gods, I think you do need a grounded character that can hold the core meaning of the plot for this movie, not necessarily the Odyssey itself, which is getting home. And I think if you don't have a character that's main goal is doing that, then it's going to be a completely different film, whether for good or for worse.
Well, see, I would push back on that a little bit in terms of that for a movie and the play of the Odyssey, right? It's the same goal, right? He's trying to get home to Ithaca, right? I don't think you need. Again, I think that framework, that mentality of needing to have a more grounded character, especially as the lead, is especially on the grand scale of everything. We could just leave the Odyssey aside, but for the grand scale of stuff, I think by doing that, right, I think it flattens the experience of the movie. I think it makes it less grand. I think when you do have characters where they are very complex, in which in one scene you want to see them do well, and the other scene you kind of want them to get their just desserts, I think again adds a level of complexity and really kind of can make it grand.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with people, right? And people aren't perfect, and people will, do the wrong thing. They will be hubristic. They'll be arrogant. They'll lie. They'll cheat. They'll do these other things.
Yeah.
Right. And so to demand perfection and especially in the Greek world, going back now to the Odyssey, right? Even the gods themselves aren't perfect moral, paragons, right? Zeus will screw anything that moves, and even then he'll sometimes screw things that don't move.
Right.
Right. They're not perfect beings, the gods specifically, and humans, and they recognize that, and that's part of the story, and that I think is what makes the story of the Iliad and the Odyssey so enduring for so long, is that it's not these flat characters. It's not these people who are purely good and purely grounded and everything. They're flawed. And it's that flaw that not only puts them in the situations, it's their flaws that also help them get out of situations.
But
right?
I agree. I think those flaws, though, were seen for the movie adaptation. Like, he wasn't a perfect character. If anything, we got more insight to, like, the inner workings of his brain, Odysseus' brain, after the fact of his 20-year conquest, essentially, or voyage. Because, like, he does things that he didn't necessarily need to do. Like, when he blinds the Cyclops, and then he shoots it again in the eye. That's almost like its interpretation of saying, I'm Odysseus. Like, I was the one. I didn't have to do that. We were out. We were safe. But he took it upon himself because he was just like, fuck this guy. And he shot him again. And then it was like a massive panic and could have cost the lives of all his crew. But he did it because he wanted to do that. But then at the end, it's like, and then he sacked Troy. Like, he was the one that was allowed that to happen. He took part in all of that, and I think it did show that he wasn't this perfect character. He's not this, like, totally morally grounded character, even though you get a lot at the end, but his actual actions kind of say the opposite. Because, like, he knows that, like, they know that the Cyclops is the son of Poseidon. Like, they make that clear in the movie, but Odysseus doesn't care, It's like they have to go back out into the ocean, obviously, and Poseidon's the god of the ocean, of the seas, and what's likely going to happen, and it does happen. So he's willfully putting his crew in danger for what reason other than arrogance, at least in that scene. I'm trying to think of others where there was that arrogant tinge to it. But I think, you can't have Odysseus be this, this selfish character the whole movie, and every action he's doing is completely for himself, because then you're really not gonna like him. You're gonna really root against him.
The thing with the Odyssey, right, in the poem specifically, right, is that yes, he has that tinge of selfishness, right? He has all the flaws that make humans, right? He does have this profound sense of duty.
Yeah.
Not only does he want to return to Ithaca to be with his wife and to with his son, to be with his family, but also to rule Ithaca. It's his duty as the king to rule the city, right? Yeah. So there's this sense of duty, right? It's the same reason in the Iliad why he went to the Trojan War, right? It's the sense of duty that he had, right? So there are, like, he has good qualities to him in the poem too, right? He's not just completely selfish in everything, with everything, right? But I think that what made his flaws, because you do have some sense of his duty within Nolan's adaptation, but you don't really get too much of his flaws. Like, yes, he does some stupid stuff, right? Yeah. Which is, I think, keeps track with some of the parallel to his character, but you don't really get this sense of arrogance, trickery, and you do have this sense of, like, he's racked with guilt, like he feels guilty for the things that he has to do.
He keeps having the flashbacks of Troy.
And that's just not who Odysseus is in the poems. That's just not who he is. So,
which would make sense too, because it's like, at least in those times, it's, he's a soldier at the end of the day. They kind of make that very clear in the beginning before he leaves. He's just, when Penelope's like, we could ride off together into the sunset, and he's just like, Agamemnon's our king, like we have to do this. So yeah, I think if they were going to lean into something to give like a moral questioning for himself, it is kind of weird that they had to pretty much only rely upon the siege of Troy as to be like, which, yeah, for the modern, like the Iraqi PTSD, like that is the only instance of war. That's the only instance of like a huge conflict that they're able to win from a trick that they are able to pull off. But I don't know.
Yeah, so that was one of the things with just the way that they did the Odyssey. And the other scene that I told you before we saw it that I was really hoping that they included, but they didn't include, which I was kind of annoyed about, was how Penelope knows Odysseus is Odysseus. Right? In the movie, they have the little trinket of Athena.
Yeah.
That's how he knows. That's how she knows that Odysseus is Odysseus after he kills the suitors.
Right.
But after he kills the suitors in the poem, Penelope has one final test for him, which is to move the bed that she has that's in her chambers, right? Their bed. And it's a test because in the poem, Odysseus previously made the bed, and the bed can't be moved. So, and only her and Odysseus know that the bed can't be moved.
Yeah. So
her trick to Odysseus is move the bed. And he responds, I can't move the bed.
Yeah.
The bed's almost like not, they don't say it's, he doesn't obviously say it's bolted to the floor, but it can't be moved.
Yeah.
And that's how Penelope knows that Odysseus is Odysseus. And I thought that would have been a very good way of identification, simply because, one, it shows Penelope has learned from Odysseus the use of tricks to get information, which I thought would have been a nice. I thought would have made, again, Penelope's character a little bit more three-dimensional.
I like that idea with the bed, and
also it's very much more intimate than just a trinket.
I was going to say that it's very personal, but I kind of like. I don't think the trinket was the thing that made her realize it was him. I think it was when he plucked the bow. Like when he restrings it, then he hits it, and then she stops and like turns around because she didn't think it's him still, and then he does that, and because then there's the older scene if he would do that as like a party trick and be able to thread the arrow through the axes. So I feel like that was a moment where it was like the audience knew it was him. Obviously, everybody knew except everybody in the room, and then he's able to do his like core feature, his like core party trick. And coincide with the music and everything. I agree. I think that was interesting with the bed, but that's almost its own kind of version of that really makes it clear and can like sound back to the audience because the audience had just seen that like an hour or two before of him doing that, and it was so iconic. And I don't know. I mean, that was just like a great scene. The whole suitor scene and him going berserk and all that. So. I agree that that's a very interesting part of it, but I don't think they necessarily did it a disservice by having their own interpretation of doing that plucking of the bowstring. Thought that was kind of cool.
I don't think it was necessarily too much of a disservice. I just thought there would have been a really intimate part because you don't have.
Because how could you have an intimate part, at least for the movie, like a poem aside, like bring elements of it, but like. How could you have an intimate moment before? Because that is that moment with the bed after he kills the suitors. Okay, so that's the thing. I think it's just like the pacing of that part in the movie doesn't allow for there to be a real intimate moment because at that time it's already clear it's Odysseus. He's in there killing everybody. The bow. Plucking that, all that. So it's pretty much guaranteed that this is Odysseus. And then you think he's dying at the end, but he's not dying. And you can have that kind of like emotional moment too. But that's just my view of it.
Yeah, I think they could have taken a beat between the two, between the killing of the suitors and that. I mean,
felt a little rushed actually at the end when he's laying in her arms and.
Yeah, I also thought the suitor scene at the end of the movie was good. I just thought. there were certain instances of the film, and we could get to the actual quality of the film after this. But one of the things that I like, what I consider a great movie as compared to just a good movie, and what I differentiate a good movie from just a fine movie and a fine movie from a crap movie, is immersion. How immersive am I in the movie? And I thought that I think they did the suitor scene really, really well. At that point, I felt I was like very immersed.
Yeah.
And then there was the one thing where Odysseus takes the axes and he starts swinging it around.
Yeah.
I felt that was a little Looney Tunes, and I was like,
That's fair. Yeah.
But other than that, I thought it was a great scene.
Or just kind of the way he was shooting his bow too.
Yeah, it was just like that.
But it is clearly it's a super high strung bow. Like to be able to pull that string to like, what do you call it? Not lacing a bow. I don't know what you call that actually. The phrase
stringing the bow.
But like it's clearly super taut. Like nobody can do that. So that specific bow probably allows for a small pullback and to be able to do that. But I agree. There was moments, or the moment with Tom Holland's character Telemachus when like right before the suitor scene when he's just like, that's like dinner's over, supper's over. I guess we can kind of then lean more into like the other qualities of the film. But I think Tom Holland for me was potentially the weakest character, the weakest like main character in that movie. He was good. I liked him the first half. He was very believable, but like once he became like the son again, of Odysseus, once he knew that Odysseus was back, he like really fell into kind of being like a little kid in a weird way, even though he's supposed to be like 22 or something. So I think he was my not annoyance, but it kind of took you out of that immersion when a line like that came into play, and you're just like, it's kind of cringy.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that he was the weakest of that group of the casting. I was not really impressed with his throughout the entire movie. I wasn't really convinced.
It was just kind of boring for him, like his scenes, like when he's on the road to Sparta, and he gets there. It's like I wasn't getting much out of those scenes. Like the settings were cool, and like, but he wasn't really adding anything to it. Even in the scenes when it was just him and Anne Hathaway, like she stole every scene from him. Like she was so good in that role that was the focal point of it, and he was kind of just the supporting. He's like the supporting actor for pretty much every scene he was in, which I didn't appreciate. So
yeah. Well, I think that's also just the quality of his role in the poem as well. He's not the main, obviously. He's not the big guy there,
I guess.
But yeah, I wasn't really impressed with his acting chops. I thought Anne Hathaway was better. I thought John Leguizamo was great.
I thought it was really good. Yeah, surprisingly good.
I was his hypocrisy aside, I thought he was very good. I remember he boycotted the Mario and Luigi movie because he thought that Mario and Luigi should have been played like voice acted by Latinos.
Yeah.
And so he boycotted the role because there was no Latinos in the film.
Yeah.
And then here he is playing a Greek.
Yeah,
so
and there's no Greek people in the film.
Yeah. So so putting his hypocrisy aside, I thought he did a very good job with the role that he had.
For sure.
With the role he had, I thought he for me, every time I saw him on the scene, I knew he was gonna.
I could see if there's going to be like a supporting actor nominations, I think it's going to be him over like Tom Holland.
Yeah.
I thought he was excellent.
I thought he did great.
Yeah,
I thought he did really,
there
really
was
good.
Pretty much every scene you were definitely on his side. Like he was this loyal servant, the whole like unwavering. But I guess other people too, like other mains, Robert Pattinson, he was very limited in the movie. Like he's probably on the screen for maybe like 10, 15 minutes. But I thought he was really good. Like such an interesting type of villain, just this kind of all bark, no bite sort of villain, which I thought was cool. And yeah, just this clearly heavy ego, even lies about his past, about like how he was spared from not serving with Odysseus and all that. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect that kind of performance. I think that was very good. I don't think most people expected that, even though he's a great actor, but he definitely stole every scene he was in for sure. Like he was the focal point, which I thought it was great. Other mains, I mean, Himesh Patel thought he was really good too as I don't know what his character's name was. I thought he did a great job and everything. Lupita Nyong'o, she was good, barely in it. She was probably in it for like 2 minutes. Essentially no scenes with her, which was a thing from the marketing. Like it felt like she was going to be this really big role in it. She was basically in one singular scene when he's with Menelaus at the banquet hall, and she's there. That's pretty much it. I thought Charlize Theron was pretty weak. I'm not gonna lie, as Calypso, I didn't get pretty much anything from her. She was kind of a very forgetful character in terms of the rest of the cast. Same as Zendaya. Said 5 words.
That was just it. Also, you just had Zendaya face the entire time.
Like, I don't think she did bad, but like her scenes didn't require anything from her. No. Like she barely said anything, which you also thought, oh, Zendaya's in this film, so is Tom Holland. She's going to be a huge character. She's Athena. No, like she wasn't in it at all. So.
No, but it's also she just has that resting face in every role.
They didn't do her any favors,
and I would just like her to once just not have that look in a role. That would be really nice. But I feel like I'm asking too much from that. And but to the other point as well, the woman who played Circe.
Yes, I don't know her name.
I didn't think that acting was that impressive to me.
It was good, but when people were saying that she was the first person on a Nolan film to get a standing ovation from the crew since Heath Ledger, and people were basically making it sounding as if she was like had just as good a performance as Heath Ledger did. It's like, okay, if she was like the main support for that movie and had that performance like the whole time, okay, maybe, but she's in the film for 3 minutes, and what are we comparing? Like, it's not, it's something that's an annoying thing from the marketing that you're like, okay, now I'm expecting this performance from this woman to be exceptional, and then it's good, but it's nothing like to rave. I'm not going home and being like, she was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, well, that was Heath Ledger. That was like a Heath Ledger-like performance.
So many similar qualities. Yeah. It's like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing with the marketing, I think, is always a problem there.
But they also did it to themselves because they marketed, they marketed a ton, and whether it's going to work out or not for them, I think it will ultimately because it's going to be a very profitable film.
That's already, yeah.
But it's like, why did you have to do, if you didn't have all of that, you wouldn't have had so much like backlash and hate prior to the film, because Nolan's never done that for a movie. I've never seen so much marketing.
Maybe a theory is that, based on the trickster aspect of Odysseus, he decided to pull one out on...
Maybe.
But that would also assume that he's doing 5D chess, and I don't think he goes that far.
Yes, and spending hundreds of millions of dollars on it.
Yes. But yeah, I wasn't impressed with it before. But it's, Matt Damon was fine. I thought he did really good at certain scenes.
Yeah.
Bernthal, never really impressed with him.
He's just the same kind of guy.
He's disgruntled veteran in almost everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I've never seen him.
He's a good actor, but that's just...
Yeah, but that's just who he plays in every role. It's just this disgruntled veteran.
I definitely wanted more from him. And I thought we were going to get a lot more from Benny Safdie as Agamemnon.
I knew we weren't going to get anything from him.
I thought we'd at least get some dialogue, like except for the Hades scene. But I did think the aspect, we talked about this before, was cool how you never saw his face.
Yeah.
Kept the helmet on the whole time, even in Hades. I thought that was a very interesting move, especially for a big star like Benny Safdie, to just kind of give him this very muted figure, almost like Ed Norton in...
the Crusader movie?
Yeah, I always forget the name of that.
Kingdom
of Heaven.
Yeah.
Kingdom of God?
Kingdom of Heaven.
Kingdom of Heaven. Kind of similar to that, where it's just this like anonymous figure. And I'm trying to think of other big actors or big roles in that. The guy who played Telestrius, the servant of Hades.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Terrestrial,
yeah. That I just love that whole sequence.
I thought the way they did I agree. I think the way that they did the underworld sequence, I thought was very, very good.
Yeah.
I thought that was
so engaging.
For a Nolan film to do the supernatural that way, I thought was good.
Yeah.
Considering I know he doesn't really dabble in the supernatural. Again, he's modern. He's materialist. He doesn't. The supernatural doesn't exist. Even though he's considered. Well, I remember when The Dark Knight came out, everyone had referred to Christopher Nolan as one of the most conservative directors. Conservative politically, probably like a small C conservative. But he's not really like, none of his movies really deal with religion or, the supernatural or even the Prestige, which is supposed to be about magic. It becomes just the magicians are proxies for Edison and Tesla, right? The science in that way. Yeah. So for him to deal with the supernatural, I was very worried about how he was going to deal with that, and I thought he did very well with the underworld.
Definitely.
Underworld scene.
You just kind of didn't know where it was going to go either. Because they're walking on this, black sand beach essentially. With I think there was a castle in the background.
I think it was just like a hill.
I feel like there was lights on it though. I thought that's what my brain was processing, but you didn't know where it was going to go. It's like, were they like, I almost thought there was going to be like a hole opens up in the ground and they're all going to like descend into it maybe. But it was kind of cool that they were already there and they basically brought Hades to them, which I thought was a very interesting aspect as opposed to like going to a specific location. Next thing they know, they're just surrounded by all of his, dead soldiers and everything, and fulfilling telling him the prophecy of the future of his life, or telling his prophecy. No, I thought that was one of the best scenes in the film. I think that was so different. I haven't seen that in pretty much any sort of, pure film from that. Like that was just such a leap.
Yeah.
And even just like the running from it too. Because once again, there was a marketing scene when he's like, let's go. And everyone's like, oh my God, he's saying let's go. But in that moment, it's like, let's go. There's 10,000 soldiers chasing us. Like, we should probably dip.
Literally the army of the dead.
Yeah. So it's like, I think he's valid in saying that. But yeah, I mean, there was just the cinematography. Hoyte van Hoytema, his longtime confidant, excellent. Pretty much every shot. There wasn't a single big landscape shot or whatever it was that was like that. I was like, oh, it looks kind of weird or this is kind of dumb. Even the cave scene with the Cyclops, like you felt enclosed. Like it felt claustrophobic, and the closing of the door in and out, and you can't get out. Thought that just brought that to life, and the score. The music, phenomenal. And I had my hesitations for it because once again, they gave more, pre-release information of Ludwig not using classical instruments and all of that. It's like, oh, what is this going to be? And then it was excellent. It was so good. That I think that added like a good 20% to the quality of the film was just the music.
Yeah, I thought the music was fantastic. It was
haunting the whole time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Still annoyed though for the reasonings for one and not the other. But
what do you mean?
Remember when the reason that they didn't use classical music?
Oh, because it was orchestra.
Yeah. Which still I'm like, well, you did that, which you did great with that
for sure.
Like you couldn't do the outfits that way. You did the costuming. No one's wearing like something that looks like a toga. Everyone's wearing like sweatpants. And, I was like,
they took some liberties.
That
for
was
sure.
That was my. But it felt. I think with the costuming specifically, though, it was like almost apocalyptic, rather than classical, or pre-classical, because it's Mycenaean era. But I think if you want beauty and that stuff, I mean, there's no armor more beautiful than ancient Greek armor. I mean, It's just insane, the detail and the way it looks, and I think that could have added to it being good.
Once again, the modern.
Yeah, it's the modern, like the scene when Menelaus is with what's his name?
Telemachus.
Yeah, when they're shooting the
pheasants
or whatever, the birds or whatever they're shooting, and they look like they're wearing hoodies. I mean, I was just like,
yeah, it was that's very small scene, but very noticeable.
Scene, but it was again one of the things where like it kind of, for me watching it, kind of like throws you out of the immersion a little bit. Where you're like, wait, what?
But also too, it's like that's because we saw that frame before it was released. I think if we never saw that picture of them, we probably wouldn't have had that kind of reaction. Like we wouldn't have felt removed from the immersion. It's just because we were able to zoom in, look at everything, look at the specifics of the armor, whereas if you're just seeing it in passing for a 30-second scene, you're never going to be like, oh, that armor was so stupid. But because they already spoiled it, we already had an opinion on it, which is...
Well, it wasn't even just that. It wasn't just like the armor, because I can go forever on armor. Yeah, I could go forever on the armor. But I'm talking also about like the outfits that they would wear outside of wearing their armor. You have the scene, I think, almost close to the beginning, right, when Penelope is speaking with Telemachus at the top of the palace.
Yeah,
outside.
Yeah,
He's kind of leaned up against.
Yeah.
Like that just he looks like he's wearing sweatpants.
It does.
And I don't understand. I don't know why. I understand. Okay, maybe with the armor, you're taking a little bit of a creative difference in direction with that. You're making something that you want to try to portray as almost apocalyptic, because that was kind of the meta theme behind it.
What do you mean? What do you mean apocalyptic?
Well, in the background of the movie that they have, which is not in the Odyssey, of course, in the poem, but in the background they have, what is Greece set in the wider world, which was the idea that the Bronze Age was collapsing as a consequence of the Sea People. Mm-hmm. So you have this kind of sense of like an impending apocalypse that's happening, right? Mm-hmm. That's the worry, right? Yeah. We need to get a king in order to deal with the Sea Peoples. We need to, these things are, that's the rumors that's circulating around, and cities of Greece are preparing for this imminent threat and this collapse of civilization. So I think in that frame, right, that meta that's going on behind there, I can kind of see the creative direction that they took in terms of having the armor look a little bit more, I would say almost like apocalyptic, like post-apocalyptic, rather than purely classical, right? And you see that, I think, too, with the Trojan armor, right, where it gives off more of in my mind, right, a more of like something that you'd see in one of those like apocalyptic movies, like this helmet specifically is something that I would not find out of place in, like, if I was to see that helmet in a Mad Max movie, I would think, oh yeah, that tracks.
It's interesting.
But for me specifically, and I'll let you do your point. But to the other one, it was why, like, I understand the creative direction for that, right, with that meta thing going on there, but. I don't understand why no one's in. And I know togas are a Roman thing, but they had something similar to a toga back then. You could have dressed them up in that way. You didn't have to have them look like,
like they just got off their horse.
Yeah, or they're wearing a hoodie or shit like that. You could.
I mean, I think I don't know if I'm just not understanding your like definition of post-apocalyptic, because for the Trojan armor, I didn't get that, because like when I think of post-apocalyptic, I think of stuff that's put together very haphazardly and not intentional, just kind of like very resourceful in a way. Mm-hmm. Whereas this looked like they were wearing like stone armor. Like when you really zoomed in on it, it looked like it was made of some type of like sanded stone, and it was very like symmetrical, the whole thing. I thought it was actually very cool. I thought it was a different kind of armor that almost gave it a like futuristic alien type like sheen to it that didn't seem like it could be made by our modern armor makers, or whatever you want to call them, our blacksmiths. It felt like this very like individualized, unique type of armor, whereas the armor of the Greeks was with the big, like the quintessential, what do you call it?
That's the Roman style.
Yeah, so that's just like an easy thing for the public to be like, these are the good guys. Like these guys, the very stereotypical armor. I don't know. I didn't have a huge problem. I thought the armor was kind of cool, actually. I don't know. That was very like futuristic, like.
And again, that's why I'm saying it's and again, I thought Agamemnon's armor was it looks cool, right?
Agamemnon, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought the Trojans looked cool as well. But again,
historical
accuracy being of this is taking place at a certain place and certain time, right? And and the movie took great care too to try to pinpoint it at a certain time, right? Yes. Which is the end of the Bronze Age.
Made it abundantly clear by saying this is the end of our Age of Bronze.
Yes, which I thought, again, we can get into the writing in a little bit, but terrible writing, a terrible line, I should say. But specifically is that you've taken great pains to pinpoint that this is the Bronze Age world.
Yeah.
And no one is wearing Bronze Age appropriate clothing.
It's fair.
And that is, again, a little bit of a point where, again, the immersion kind of becomes a little taxing, where it becomes harder to stay with.
Thankfully, they didn't have that line till the very end.
Yes, thankfully that's true. But in terms of the armor, in terms of the clothing there, but by apocalyptic, I don't mean things like haphazardly. I'm saying that if I was to see that helmet that the Trojan wore on some random extra in Mad Max, it would not look out of place to me.
Dude, maybe it's because I hate Mad Max.
Maybe, but I'm saying there's any type of like post-apocalyptic like desert.
But I feel like for
thing.
post-apocalyptic movies, it's always like very, like the armor they have is just like what they have, like that, like what's laying around. What can we like rehabilitate or make useful for ourselves? It's basically scavenging. Whereas this was like very like precisely made stone-looking armor that you would almost think like a mason would have to like be involved in making that. I just feel like, and maybe that's not accurate for the times or anything, but I think it was a cool like variation or iteration of armor as not just some sort of like metal thing that they're wearing, kind of like the big giants. They were wearing like the knights kind of armor.
Yeah, that was also
kind of weird, but I don't know. Maybe we're gonna get hung up on that, but
true.
I mean, I guess we can go a little bit into the writing now. I mean, yes, lines like that, or the line with Tom Holland and,
Dad,
supper's over.
Dad.
Thankfully, he didn't really, no, he only said dad once. So
he said dad a few times.
He said it once.
He said it more.
He said it one time. He said it once. He said father. He said father more than dad. He said dad when he was dropping the sword through the hole so he can grab it. He's like, dad, and then he dropped it. It's the only time he said dad.
No, he said dad in advance as well.
Huh?
My dad's coming home. At the very beginning, where he's talking to Antinous.
Oh.
And then he says, you're pining.
I think he said father.
No, he said dad. And he said, the response is, you're pining for a daddy that you never had.
Like a sniveling little bastard.
Yeah. But I thought the writing specifically for the movie, again, for most Christopher Nolan films that I know, right, the plot's kind of an extra point. The writing is kind of extra. It's the visuals for Christopher Nolan, I think, for a lot of it. He puts more emphasis on the visual aspect rather than really necessarily the writing, I think. And I thought this one was... I don't think the way in which he wrote... Because there were some good lines in there, like the sniveling bastard line. Like, I'm not saying it's all terrible. But I didn't think that a lot of the writing matched the tone of which the film was going for.
Okay.
I thought it was very truncated with that type of stuff. Very simple writing. And for something which you have the Odyssey.
Yeah, you're basing it off of a written work.
And again, I think I guess the specific criticisms that I've mentioned so far in this podcast concerning Odysseus as a character, concerning like maybe the writing here, is really just also a criticism of the translation that he based it off of. Because that translation is just not good.
Yeah.
It does not really convey the majesty that an epic poem of that caliber and influence kind of really has.
I wonder if that Emily Willis, Wilson, I wonder if she like had rewritings of the actual dialogue from the original text. I wonder.
Yeah, it's definitely much simpler.
Yeah.
It's definitely much simpler. You don't have that more flowery language that you get in previous translations. I mean, my favorite translation is the Fitzgerald translation. I think that one is, it's amazing, the writing for that one. But it's very flowery. It's very, very decadent type of writing in terms of that. But you have two translations where one is a much more simpler style of writing, and one which is more flowery, more decadent, and you choose the more simpler one to base it off of. I'm not surprised that the writing then is simple compared to, what it could have been, which is,
And I agree with you. I'm not going to say that was the best script I've ever witnessed, or, the best lines or the best dialogue. But I think, I'm not saying it's like they had bigger fish to fry, because everything comes from the script. Everything comes from the writing. That's the basis of all good works, on screen and off. But they did have a lot to tackle. Like it probably is one of the most ambitious films of a modern filmmaker that I can think of in recent memory, to tackle something as big as this, and to give, I'd say, fairly good credit to the scenes they were going for. Like it was a massive film in terms of, the Cyclops, the giants, Circe on, with the pigs and all that. Calypso, the voyages and the chaos and the shipwrecks and all of that, even the battles and the Troy. So you can kind of understand why the writing wasn't that same, not sophisticated, but flowery type of writing, because it would get lost, I think, because you have so much else going on. And if you're going to lose that, if you're going to lose like the deepness of the writing in the original text from the implementation of the big world building and all the scenes that they're in, then it's probably best to try to figure out a common ground in the middle. Try to not give it verbatim or give too much, because it's going to be lost upon the modern take that he's trying to do. So is it in regards to an adaptation or removing from an adaptation and just being the writing on its own, was it the best Nolan's ever done? No, definitely not. But did it serve its purpose? Did it do its job? Did it convey what it was trying to convey? I think so. I think I would give it like a B.
Well, yeah, you weren't confused with what they were saying. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the quality of what makes, I think, just a good film good, and what makes a great film great, right? One of the other qualities is, yes, you are tackling a lot, right? I'm not doubting that at all. But if your writing can't match the tone of, I don't think the writing, especially for the Odyssey, something that has always been known to be a poem of epic proportions, of the language too, of, same with the Iliad, right? And you take that, right, and I get you have all this stuff that you're doing. I don't think the language, the more flowery language, necessarily takes it away. I think it matches the tone of the scale of grandeur that you're trying to convey. If everything else is grand, if everything else is the sweeping, amazing, cinematography, the beautiful shots of the ocean, the crashing of the waves, that they're dealing with, the monsters and all this stuff. It's a very grand and very, epic story. I don't understand why then the writing would not also try to reflect that as well. I mean, that's for me is like just an adaptation of any movie, right? That which you're taking a source material that generally is known in, conceptually for people to have very flowery and decadent. I keep saying those two words because it is flowery and decadent writing that really kind of emphasize the grandness of what you're reading and what you're dealing with. I mean, that's why it's an epic. That's why it's endured for so long as a classic, is because of the style of.
But I think we're like kind of not moving away, but like separating Nolan's adaptation from the poem. Obviously, they're not going to be able to put the same type of language in this, and I don't think it necessarily removed me from the immersion of the work itself. My opinion. I don't think it was like this huge. Like there were some one-off lines that I was like, okay, that's like super unnecessary. But for the most part, I think it served its purpose. I think it did its job and gave the viewers what the viewers needed.
True, but I agree. I don't think the writing necessarily, other than the few off lines that made me cringe a little bit. I don't think, again, as a utilitarian aspect, it did its job.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
But I don't think. But again, holistically, right? Writing is not simply just a utilitarian mechanism, right? It is itself a way in which to convey, right? It is an art form itself in terms of writing.
But when you're doing film, though, it gets a little more difficult to really convey every word that's written,
But I'm not saying you have to copy and paste Fitzgerald's version and then just use that. I'm not saying do that. Right, I understand an adaptation. You're going to have to cut things. You have to truncate some stuff. Like, I get it. I'm not, I'm not a crazy person, right, who demands this really kind of, strict adherence to the text. I understand adaptations necessarily require sacrifice in certain things because of the way it is. But that being said, I don't think that necessarily means you take just a strict utilitarian approach to the writing. I don't think that gives you license then to throw out any type of flowery language. I don't think that gives you license to do any of that, right? I think that there is still room for that. I'm not saying every line has to be this crazy, fancy, flowery, thing. But there are certain points where he's speaking to Athena. drafted up that language a little bit because he believes he's speaking to a god, right? The way that which people speak to the divine is very different than the way they speak to their friends, right? You could, kind of push that language up a little bit more. John Leguizamo's character, in which the way he describes certain things, I feel like that was a moment too that you could have kind of made the language a little bit more.
I feel like those lines were good though.
I'm not saying that they weren't good. I'm saying that I think that the way which you have a more poetic kind of way of speaking, I think you could have and should have still incorporated to that point. I'm saying that I think that just looking at writing as a strictly utilitarian way and not as itself a way in which to kind of reflect the grandeur in which you're trying to communicate with putting an epic on that way on screen, I think does a disservice, and I think kind of hits the tone a little bit wrong. That's my point. And not everything has to be flowery, not everything has to be perfect, but certain things that Penelope says, right? They could be a little bit. Certain things that Telemachus.
I was gonna say I almost feel like those scenes, the non-Odysseus scenes, were more so along those lines. Like they were more descriptive. They were more like personalized. They were more like even the Antinous, his lines were like very snaky. Like they were very like well thought out. Even like the sniveling bastard line. Like lines like that kind of made sense for it. Whereas the scenes with Odysseus, if he was speaking with Athena, it should have been a more like more like a venerable type of like language probably, but he's kind of just off. Like his scenes for the most part are, these crazy adventures. Like he's doing these crazy things, life and death, basically the entire time. So you once again, for the modern audience and moving away from the adaptation or the original source material for a film, you're not just reading this. I think it would be lost. I think putting too much of not verbatim language, but too much flowery or descriptive language would be wasted, which I don't think writing should be wasted in any sense. So why would they put themselves through having more of that type of language when for the movie, for the film, it was unnecessary? And there was already so much going on and so much to bring in. And then you're putting on another layer of like this type of language that maybe people are not very familiar with or will have a difficult time understanding the true meaning behind it. And that's why I think that's the whole point. This is a modern adaptation. So they can't necessarily do that for everything. I think they did. I think I definitely want to see it again. And I will definitely pay a lot more attention to the writing, especially for the Odysseus scenes to see, okay, was there actually a lot of lacking? Because just from a first viewing, it's difficult to be like, oh, the script was shit. The script was so bad.
I'm not saying the script was...
No, I'm not either. But it's like, I think I think to see it a couple times, you'll be able to really say, okay, was this good writing? Or was this left to be desired for other parts?
Yeah. I mean, my first rewatch, I thought the writing had some to be desired for. I just don't think that... I disagree, maybe I guess philosophically with you on that necessity is not sometimes the driver for some of these things, right? You're trying to, it's a spectacle, right? That's what films are. And especially when you're doing an adaptation like this, right? Of anything in which you're trying to do or create kind of an epic. And it doesn't matter if it's from the classical world or if it's, a 17th century play like Barry Lyndon or Lawrence of Arabia, right? Or the Warner Brothers version of Cleopatra that almost bankrupted the studio.
Oopsies.
Yeah. Just talk about spectacle. You can't do that now. But it's like, but the writing is not considered in any of those films to be. It's necessary, of course, because there's communication happening, right? But there is a sense, a level of that the writing is just as important, if not more important, than the crazy, like the really insane shots that the cinematographic shots that they have there, right? There is a sense of they're both supposed to elevate each other, and if one doesn't do its job, then it kind of, again, the tone no longer matches the visuals.
Maybe you're right though. Maybe when you said this is like Nolan, his movies are focused a lot on the visuals, a lot on like the plot itself, and it just uses the writing enough to be able to push the plot, to move the plot.
Yeah.
Which, the more I think about that, they're never like when I'm looking at thinking back to awards, they're never really winning for writing or best screenplay or best adaptation adapted screenplay. But I think maybe that is a characteristic of Nolan where writing isn't the biggest thing to him, but it's a necessary component that gets him from point A to point B.
Yeah, for him. I think it's utilitarian. I think again, I think he's more visual. He's more plot rather than that. And I think that in the comparison of because everyone does the director's comparisons of who's better than who, and I think it's a very difficult thing to have there. Yeah. But in terms of Nolan's writing, that as a director kind of is a mark.
I'm also not sure if he wrote this movie. I don't know.
He did write it.
Was he the writer?
Yeah, he was director and writer.
Would he have co-writer at all? Was his brother involved?
I think it was just him.
Just him?
Because at the end, it had written and directed by Christopher Nolan.
Okay.
At the end.
Gotcha.
So that was the one. So I think that kind of hits the mark that way a little bit, but kind of is a ding. But
fair. I'll give my final assessment when I see it.
It's a. But I didn't think that the writing was necessarily bad. I just
lacking.
Yeah, it just didn't hit the tone of what the movie was trying to do. And I get it. It's. But that's the thing. But by doing what he did, by the creative decisions that he made, he didn't. In my opinion, it is an epic, but it's more. It's a soft epic and more of a psychological drama, rather than I didn't leave the movie thinking that was an epic.
I kind of did.
I thought it was visually stunning. I thought what they did was great. I thought the pacing was good. I thought the music was good. I thought there was a lot of good things about the movie, but I didn't walk away from it the same way that I walked away from Lawrence of Arabia or Barry Lyndon, where I was like, wow, that took me on the exploration of the different themes and all this different types of stuff. There was so much deeper stuff that I walked away from Nolan's movie thinking that was great. That was a cool film. That was a good movie. It had great pacing, but I didn't feel like it was an epic of epic proportion. I felt like Interstellar was more of an epic than. And
Interstellar is my favorite movie.
Yeah,
but
I felt like that was more of an epic that hit the mark, because even the writing there doesn't constrain it, because it make the writing and I don't know if it was Nolan or his brother who did the writing for Interstellar, but the writing there of it being utilitarian, right, having a more utilitarian philosophy there, works in a film like that, where it is very focused, where utilitarianism really is the goal, right?
That's and I guess this kind of depends.
Philosophy guiding.
Does the writing add to the epicness? Does that? Because I think in terms of visuals, in terms of all that, it was an epic. It was the biggest film Nolan's ever done. I can't even Interstellar. This felt like the most immersive film I've seen of Nolan. It felt like you were in the time they were trying to depict.
I didn't feel that.
I felt that. I mean, I felt like it was this foreign lands. They were in these foreign islands, these encounters with these beings that you had no clue. They're basically just lost at sea for 10 years until he, gets captured by Calypso. And just the grandeur of it was, I thought it was so impressive. And even what they did, to make the Cyclops, used an actual 50-foot tall puppet. That's insane. You don't see that. Last time you saw that was the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. The how he used things just to make it, and not necessarily what you saw on screen, I think adds a lot to the actual movie itself. Lots of the ship scenes were actually legit. They were actually rowing. That was real footage of them sailing the boat by doing that. So I thought it was one of the most immersive films that I've seen of Nolan, except maybe for Interstellar.
So I would say that was coming in with because you know me, I have very high standards when it comes to movies for historical accuracy, and coming in also knowing with the Odyssey in mind, I did not think that was that immersive in that way. I still thought it was immersive. I think
I think maybe remove it a bit. Don't use the poem.
It's very hard to.
I know, but just as a movie.
as a movie, you always have to, just on a pure movie basis, I don't disagree that the visuals were stunning. I don't disagree with some of the creative choices that were made right there. I think it was an adaptation of an Odyssey.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it was good as a movie that exists. Right. But yeah,
it's good as a movie that exists.
Yes, it's good as a movie that exists.
What a way to say I got a C+.
It did, yeah. But maybe B- if I'm being very generous here. But
I think you're gonna like it again on the rewatch.
Well,
I think you're
we'll
gonna like
see.
it more.
But it's very hard to separate the two, and I think that's with anyone who comes in having read something, and then you get an adaptation of it. You have the thing in your mind. You have, and again, just also the standards for historical accuracies that I have. It's something that it's always going to be there with whatever. You could make a movie about any book that I've read, right? And I'm going to come into it with the book in mind.
Yeah.
And that will always be the problem with making an adaptation of a work, right? You're always going to have the audience that has read the work.
So if this
coming
wasn't,
into it.
if this wasn't an adaptation, if this wasn't based on a previous, historical text, what would you think? Like if this was an original film.
If this was an original film, no Odyssey, I would still think that it would be much higher mark in my book, but I'd still have the issue with the costuming, and I think the writing would still be something that I was like, well, I don't think it. That's why I think
the costuming is not based on anything. If there's no text.
But you do set it in. You do take pains to set it in the late Bronze Age.
Bronze Age didn't exist if the Odyssey didn't exist.
What are you talking about? No, but like
Odyssey's a textbook.
Like what's it called? I felt like even like Inception, I thought had better immersion. I thought that Interstellar will always
peak.
It will always be, I think, his best work. I don't think
it's going to be difficult to beat that.
He's not going to be able. I don't think he'll ever be able to make a movie that beats that. But yeah, I think too. It's it is like I'm not gonna. I don't know why you're trying to press me for this thing. It's a good film. It's in terms of like
I'm just saying.
In terms of it, will it be considered a classic that will like handed down in 60, 70 years where people will be like the Odyssey by Nolan? I don't think people will have that reaction to that. I think his classic will be Interstellar, and I don't think the Odyssey. I think the Odyssey over time will bear the problems that happens with just anyone's work. I think it'll be right now. It's a good movie. It's a great movie. It's the best so far this year.
Yeah,
I do think Dune 3 will.
Yeah, that's the
throw
only one
that off. It's
the only one that can beat it.
It's thrown right now.
We'll see.
I agree, but I think again, 60, 70 years. I think people will be like, oh, it's
just another adaptation.
Just another Odyssey adaptation that they've done before, and someone else will do another adaptation of the Odyssey, just as someone else will probably do another adaptation of the Iliad, and it will just
like
keep
it never
going
existed.
on and on and on. Yeah, eventually it'll just get lost in the.
This movie will be lost in the trash bin of time.
That's everything now. That's
what a sad ending.
That's
to the podcast. We're just forgetful movie.
Yeah, it's the mortality of art, right? Certain things, right? They don't really stick. I mean, even great films that were considered great at the time and are now classics, like Metropolis, right? Film from 1926.
Yeah,
considered great. Did all these crazy
like 2001.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about. I'm talking specifically with Metropolis, where a third of the film was lost.
Interesting.
And it was just gone. Like it was even still, even after with a third of it gone, it was still considered like a classic, and it was still considered big and something that people would go to see. Like,
well, it's going to be difficult if you're doing an adaptation to make that be the will the Christopher Nolan Odyssey be more remembered than the Odyssey? No. It's not possible.
No.
So that's the problem. If it was an original film, maybe like Interstellar, but that could be a problem. When you have adaptations, they're never really going to be the defining, social understanding of that story. Like it'll never be able to hold that. I can't think of anything.
No, but I do think you have like Troy. I think comes to a lot of people's mind with Brad Pitt when they hear like Achilles and So I think in like the popular conception, it'll have a staying power for some time.
For a while,
when
yeah,
they
I
think
think
of
so.
like the Odyssey, they'll think of like Matt Damon as Odysseus.
Definitely for the next couple decades, I would say.
But in terms of is like, will we look back on the Odyssey in 70 years and say, yes, it's Lawrence of Arabia, it's Barry Lyndon, it's Cleopatra, it's The Godfather, and
Yeah, I would put Interstellar over the Odyssey.
It's not
even Inception. Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. It's not. It doesn't. It's a good film, great film.
Sure.
But as an epic that will have that staying power over time, I don't think it'll have that.
So final consensus: it's a very good film. It does
One
not,
of the films.
It does not have staying power for our future generations.
I think that's most movies, though.
It's most movies, and go see it. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I highly recommend everyone go see it. I recommend everyone to watch it and walk away with your own opinions. I also recommend people read the Odyssey. I know people don't read anymore,
read
but I
it.
recommend actually reading it. Do not read Emily Wilson's translation.
Don't read that.
Find Fitzgerald's translation much better.
Read that one.
Yeah, but I'd give. What would you give the movie? What would you give the
Percentage?
Odyssey? Out of 10.
I use decimal points.
Sure. No 2.56,
No,
whatever. Don't
that
be an
much.
idiot.
I would give it an 8.7.
Okay.
8.8. I think I would give it that.
That's fair.
Your turn.
7.
7 point.
0.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe as always. And
Like and subscribe.
next week we'll be back for a brand new topic.
Our regular
and,
viewing.
Yeah. See you guys then.
Take care. Get up.